Hello loves, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Faith. So in today's tutorial, I'm going to be learning how to make this A-line button-up gown with an elastic at the back. So for the making of this particular dress, we'll be needing a hemming gum, your scissors, your collar gum. This is a collar gum, and an elastic. I have here 2 inches elastic and the material in which you want to use to make this gown. So I have here 1.5 yard, which ended up being small. So just in case you want to make this same dress, I'll advise you go from 2 yards and above. So you go ahead and fold your fabric into an A shape like I did. Just follow what I did and do same for yours. And I want to just go ahead and roll a line, which will be serving as my shoulder line. So from there, I'll just go ahead and measure my armhole line, which was 9 inches. That's my arm. From my shoulder to my armhole is 9 inches. From my shoulder to my waist is 16 inches. So you just take those measurements, and from my shoulder to where I want this gown to end, I marked and added an extra 1 inches for folding allowance, as you can see. So I noticed the lines were invisible, so I had to go back and rewrite them. So after doing that, I went in to take in my shoulder measurement, which my shoulder measurement divided by 2, which gave me 7.5, and I just drew a line from where I drew the 7.5 to my armhole line. So after doing that, I went into taking my body measurement, my bust measurements, and I added an extra inches for allowance. I went in also to taking my waist measurements. You just mark in your waist measurement, and for the waist measurement, since I know I'll be inputting an elastic at the back, I added an extra 4 inches allowance because I want the back to be free by the time I put in that elastic. So after doing that, you just want to connect from your bust line to your waist and just carve it down right to the end where you want this gown to end. So after doing that, you want to go ahead to take in the neckline of this gown. So I just went in. This is going to have a collar. For the width, I did 2.5, and for the depth of this particular fold, I did 1.5 inches. Please take note, this is the back part we are drafting. That's why the depth is 1.5. So after doing that, you want to take in your shoulder slope. From your shoulder measurement, you go down by 1 inches and just connect it to the width, to your neck width. So after doing that, you want to get in a perfect armhole curve. So you just place your tape from your shoulder slope down to your armhole line, get the midpoint going by 0.5 inch and just connect. As you can see what I'm doing, you just get the midpoint, go in by 0.5 inches and just connect from your shoulder slope to your armhole. And after doing that, you just go ahead and cut. Please take note on how I'm cutting mine and just follow same way I did and cut yours. So after doing that, I've gone ahead to fold in my fronts and just trace out the sides. So when you're folding in your front, you'll be leaving an extra 1 inches at the front. As you can see what I did, I left an extra 1 inches for my buttons, for where my buttons will be lapping each other, and I just want to take in the neck width. I just followed the back net width and traced it down. And also for the depth of the front, I went in by 2.5, and and just connect it to my neck width. As you can see, as you're seeing what I'm doing, just use your free hand and trace as well. So for the front, I'll just slant at that extra 1 inch. I'll just slant a little bit upward, so that by the time we will be stitching this, we won't have maybe the fabric shorting or so. So you just go ahead and cut in the neckline, as you can see, and also open the front part, that part in which we'll be serving for our buttons. You just open them up as I did. Do same for yours. After doing so, you're just going to fold in your sleeves. Please fold in your sleeve the same way you did for that gown. Do it in an A shape, and you just measure your round sleeve measurement divided by 2. Please, my material ended up being very small for me, so I just had to manage how to trace out this sleeve. That's why I didn't do a very detailed explanation on how I cut out the sleeve. I just had to manage up to get this particular sleeve out. So you just measure your round sleeve divided by 2, and from the top of that I went down by 3 inches and just used my free hand to trace out the curve you're seeing, which will be serving as a sleeve curve. I just use my hand and trace out, and you just go ahead to cut gently as I did. Just do same for yours. After doing that, I want to go ahead to stitch in your button flap. I'll call that the button flap. That's the area where you'll be placing your buttons on. You just fold in and run a stitch down. So after doing so, you want to go ahead and work in with your back pieces. You just go ahead and extend that waistline you drew, because I've now opened the back. You just extend it to the other edge at the waistline. So I want to take in 2 inches in which we'll be placing a band for the elastic. So I just went up 1 inches and went down 1 inches, which will make out the 2 inches in which we'll be placing our band for, which will be serving a place where we'll be inserting our elastic on. So after doing that, you just use your free hand to trace out the lines. After doing so, you just have to measure the length in which that waistline is. So you'll be using the measurement to cut out your 2 inches band, which you'll be placing there. So I've gone ahead to cut out my band. I cut it out 3 inches. It's a half inches at both sides for allowance, and I'll just going to place that at my back pieces and just stitch it up. As you can see, just stitch it at those lines which we had drawn before. After doing that, you want to take in the length of your band, the band you'll be using for the back. So I divided my waist measurement into 2, and I got my measurement. Then for the band, I subtracted an extra 2 inches because it's actually stretchy. So why I did so you're just going to be using your pin to insert that in. So after doing so, this is what it's going to be looking like from the back to the front. So I just want the back to look a little bit smoky, so I'll be running down some stitches on the band. So after doing that, this is what it's looking like. After doing so, you just place in your front piece on the back, side by side, right side facing each other. Just place in as you see me doing. Yes, so after placing in, you just go into stitching your shoulder. You just run down a stitch there. So after stitching, I'll just bring in my sleeves. I've gone ahead to fold in the edges of my sleeves, as you can see. For the two, I've gone ahead to fold in their edges. So I just want to join them to the main dress, to my gown. So you just open up your gown as you see me doing, and just place the sleeves at the center and just run a stitch from the center right to both sides. So after doing that, you go ahead to lock up the sides. I did lock up the sides with the allowance I have. I locked up with just half an inch allowance round for the both sides. Yes, I was managing this material, so that's why I'm using just half an inch for the locking up at the sides. So after doing so, I've gone ahead to flip it to the front, and this is what it's looking like. So let's work with our neckline. So you're going to take in your tape and measure around your neckline in order to get in your collar. Just measure around. I measured mine and I got 16 inches, as you can see. So I went ahead to get an extra pieces and put it in a fold, which I have here 1.5 inches, and I'll just measure. Remember, the neck width was 16. I measured 17 inches. This is going to be serving as our first collar. I measured 17 inches instead of 16, half inches at the both sides for stitching allowance. And for this is going to be serving as the second layer of our collar. I measured here. I want this to be 2 inches, but I marked 2.5, half inches for stitching allowance. And I marked here for the second layer of the collar. For the length, I got exactly 16 inches. We won't be needing 17 inches for the second layer of the collar. So after doing that, I'll just go into folding and just cut any excess and just cut them out. So after doing that, you just go ahead and place in your collar gum. Just search for the side where the gum is facing up, then you place your fabric on it and just trace out, just like what I'm doing. First one, you go ahead and repeat same for the second collar as well. Just trace out, and after tracing out, you just cut and go ahead and iron it. So after ironing, this is what it's looking like. This is what our collars are looking like. So for the first layer of the collar, that's the one we cut 1.5 inches in the fold and 17 inches for the length. I'm just going to be folding it like this. Just fold yours the way I'm doing. I won't fold the two of them the same. I'll fold one to be longer than the other and just use my hand. Just follow what I'm doing and refold the second one inward and just go into my ironing table and press in. So after ironing that, this is what it's looking like. You just go ahead and separate, open up from the center as I'm doing. Just take your scissors and open up at the center of this particular fold. So after doing that, this is what it's looking like. The two that I've opened, this is what it's looking like. So you're just going to take right sides facing each other and join together, and just use a pick to curve out that curvy part our first collar is going to be having. So I'll just use my hand to trace that out. As you can see at the edge of it, just make sure you're curving the way you want your collar to be curved at that part. You do that for the both sides, as you can see what I'm doing, and just cut. By the time you're done doing that, you just make sure you cut the both sides. So after cutting that, you make sure you notch the center of this fold. So you just fold it like this and get the midpoint and just a notch. Yes, this is very necessary. In order not to make mistake, you just notch yours like I did. So after doing that, you're going to get in the second layer of your collar. Yes, this is what it's looking like, the second layer. You just fold in into two. Notch the center of that fold as you see me doing. Then you go ahead, want to take the length in which the second collar will be. So for this second collar, the length will be 14 inches. That's 1 inch away from the first collar. So I have here 14 inches divided by 2, 7 inches. I added 0.2 inches allowance and just slant it at the top part. I added 0.2 inches allowance for stitching allowance, so by the time we stitch, this will still turn out to be 14 inches. So you just go ahead and cut and you stitch. So I've gone ahead to stitch, and this is what it's looking like. I just want to measure to know if we are on point. So I got there my 14 inches back. So you just go ahead to flip this over to the right side, and this is what we are having. So you just take in your first collar as you see me doing, and taking the second collar, place the two of them at the notch. Make sure you're following the notch. Place the two of them at the center. Then take the second part of the first collar and place it on top. And after doing that, you just want to mark where you start stitching. So I won't start stitching from the beginning. I will go up 0.2 inches, then use my free hand to curve out half inches at that curvy part. 0.2 inches, go up and curve half inches with my beak and just give it that curvy shape of how I want this collar to come out. So after doing that, you just go ahead to stitch. I've gone ahead to stitch mine. This is how it's looking like, and I just want to cut out the excesses that it's having. So you can see how I stitch following those lines I drew before. So I just want to take in the measurement. Remember, our neckline is 16, so this collar turned out to be 16 as well. So you're just going to flip it to the front as I did. Yes, this is how our collar is coming out very neat. And remember that 1 inch space we give, this is what it's going to be looking like. So after that, you just go ahead and fold this inside and take this to your pressing table and press to give this a very neat outcome. So after doing that, this is what it's looking like. This is what our collar is looking like, very neat and clean. So you just take in your cloths, get the center point of your neckline and notch. So after doing that, you just take in your collar, that part where you notch at the center, and the cloth, your actual cloth where you notch at the center, put them together and just stitch from beginning to end. So after stitching, this is what it's looking like. It's actually coming out very neat. So after doing that, you just flip in, you just take in that part where you sewed, put it at the center, just use the top collar, the other part of the collar, and just stitch on top just to cover up everything we've been doing. So this will be the last stitch we'll be stitching on the collar. So after doing that, this is how neat our collar turned out. This is how neat and beautiful it turned out. Our collar really came out very neat and I loved it. So if you've been watching this tutorial from the very beginning right up to this point, please do well to subscribe and turn on your notification button to get notified whenever we upload a new video. So I'll just go ahead to fold in the end of this particular gown with that 1 inch allowance we give. So just going to fold in round, and after doing that, you're just going to mark in your buttonholes, which is the last thing you'll be doing for this particular cloth. You're marking your buttonholes and just impute your buttons on them. So this is actually preferable. I marked mine 4 inches away from each other. Like I said, this is actually according to your preference. After doing that, this is what our gown turned out to be, very beautiful and simple. I loved it. Thank you for watching, and remember to subscribe.